Welcome to Strong Conversations, hosted by Simpson Strongtie, where we bring partners, colleagues, innovators, and leaders together for insightful conversations. We dive into the subjects and issues that we all face, forging stronger connections and relationships along the way. In our Building the Brand series, we talk to leaders and entrepreneurs in the building industry about what it takes to start a venture or business and build it into a brand. We talk about taking a chance on yourself and the determination and resilience that it takes to stay the course. Our guests share with us what it means to be a heart-led leader and the importance of not just building the brand, but building a culture that your employees can thrive in. Brian Larrabure grew up in the entertainment industry, but he wanted something different. He didn't want to follow in his family footsteps and decided to venture out on his own and founded BFL Inc., a leading framing and wall panelization company in the Southern California market. Brian talks about how to make your brand stand out in a very crowded field.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Strong Conversations. I am Sam Marcoux. This is the Building the Brand series. And joining me on this episode, a very special episode, is Mr. Brian Larrabure. How are you doing, Brian?
Very good. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. This is going to be an interesting one, ladies and gentlemen. We talked to a lot of folks, Brian, who are in the building industry, and they all have, I would say, two unique paths. You're either born into this industry or you somehow fall into it. You might be the unicorn that doesn't fall into either one of those categories, the exception to the rule. We're going to talk all about that and everything that you have been doing here in the construction industry for the last however long you've been doing it. But tell everybody who you are. We already did that. And what do you do and who you do it for and how long have you been doing it?
I am the president of our companies. We have a installation arm for the framing side, and then we have a fabrication arm, which builds roof trusses, floor trusses, and panelization. So we prefabricate the entire project and turnkey install.
So building houses and structures for everyone to live in across the United States, or at least primarily here in Southern California, yeah?
Multifamily, primarily here in Southern California.
Perfect. So growing up, like I already alluded to, the family business was not necessarily construction, right?
Nope. Mom and dad were in the studio business.
So we are in Southern California right now as we record this. Mom and dad were in the studio business, meaning TV shows, movies, Hollywood.
Dad did a lot of commercials for airlines, and mom was Alfred Hitchcock's right-hand gal.
Okay.
Albeit older genre, but somewhat well-known man who made a lot of very well-known historic films.
Yeah, I think we could name drop Alfred Hitchcock and people are going to know who the man is. Obviously a legend. I bring this up because I would be willing to bet good money that there are probably more people that were born into the construction industry who decided to go into the movie industry as opposed to people born into the movie and entertainment industry and going into construction.
I would venture to guess you'd be correct there.
So what was the appeal of going? Because when we talked about this, you were pretty young when you realized, I want something different. I don't want to do this, what my parents are doing. I'm going to go another path. How old are you when you realized construction might be the path for you?
Pretty young. I was very interested in architecture and houses. I had an opinion on just about every house and how poorly it was looking or how good it was looking.
Yeah.
And when I got into junior high, the unions were there on the school day, and they had a wood frame building. And that seemed kind of interesting. And in high school, our woodshop class had a framing course, and we had a drafting course. And what those two courses really were sweatshops for the teacher for woodshop and the teacher for drafting, because the two of them would conspire to get us to do all the work to model their side jobs, which was developing.
Okay. So they had a little side hustle through the high school there.
Yeah.
Woodshop and drafting. So take it back to, you said that you had an opinion on all the structures that you would see. What is it that you would look at? Can you remember and go back and go, well, I don't like was it like the windows? Was it the doors? Was it the color? What was it that would catch your eye first?
It would be the curb appeal.
Okay. So just in general, I'm looking at this, I would want to live there or I don't.
Correct.
And then from there, you would start to
And form an opinion, and I felt like maybe my path was going to be building houses.
Okay. So that's where I go back to you being a unicorn. I don't know of too many people that choose to come into this, right? You're either born into it or you sort of fall into it. It's a great industry. I've been in this industry for a long time, since I was a teenager, but it wasn't anything where, again, sitting down in school going, what do you want to be when you grow up? It was never, I hope I'm a hardware salesman.
It's like people didn't look at, it's a blue collar job.
Yeah.
People didn't look at like, this is your career path, really? You
Right.
should be going to college. But this is like the dirty jobs thing.
Yep.
Where you can actually make good money doing this.
It's to your point of dirty jobs with Mike Rowe. It's kind of a secret, right? I mean, it's a secret that we keep trying to tell people about and try to get more people into the industry, because I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to have wonderful jobs and careers in this, but it's one of those things where you have to experience it almost firsthand to realize the appeal of it, in my opinion. Do you feel the same, or?
I would say you're pretty spot on.
Yeah.
You try and talk to people and say, hey, this is a good job and you should come in and work for us. If they're coming from a different background, it's hard for them to see it.
Yeah.
And then their family may say things like, well, that's construction. It's very volatile. You don't want to be in that.
So you realize at a young age, Brian, that you're like, this might be my path. I might go into construction. You had an eye for what you were looking at. You had an interest as people showed up, and you're taking trades classes, I would say, in high school. Did you know at that age, okay, not only am I going to be in this business, but I'm going to own my own business. I'm going to run a company. Did you have that big picture in mind, or was it just, I want to be involved somehow?
I did. I had the picture where I thought I would be building houses.
Okay.
I had this vision of, I'm going to build a house at a time. I'm going to figure out how to make the money, build a house at a time, build it, finish it, and sell it.
Okay. So how did that get started? Now, obviously you're in school and you've kind of figured out what you like and what you're passionate about, but at some point you got to take that step to, this is now going to be my career. What's that first step look like?
First step was going to be a laborer for a contractor.
Okay.
So I got to dig ditches and holes and
All the fun stuff.
all the really not fun stuff, and paint and haul trash, and spend the summers between different grades doing that during high school.
Now, during that, I mean, obviously you're paying your dues, right? I think that's the very definition of paying your dues right there. Did it ever make the dream of being in the construction industry a little dimmer? Did you go, maybe this isn't for me if I got to do this type of stuff? Or was it, I know what this is, take care of it and move on?
It didn't change it. It just made me more motivated to move on, because being in the ditches and hauling trash, it's like, okay, how much longer do I have to do this?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, how much longer did you do that before you moved on?
I think I did the dirtiest of dirty jobs for maybe the first 3 or 4 years of my field career.
Okay. After that, those first 4 years, you're moving on, you're moving up. What was next?
I moved away from general contracting. I was working for a Malibu-based general contracting firm,
Okay.
building houses for celebrities and whatnot. And we were doing it from bottom to top. So I got to do a bit of everything. I moved into a company that was framing. And I was fortunate enough that there was no piecework. It was all hourly. So we got to do everything.
Mhm.
And so besides hauling lumber and doing the labor work, they would let me actually help them do the different aspects. And it was a on the ground training course. So you got to learn at a very rapid pace all the different categories, which sadly our industry doesn't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Uh,
So when you're in that environment and you're hands-on, like you said, you got to do everything. So you got exposed to different parts of the business. Was there one area that you were drawn to more than others in that environment where you're learning all this different stuff?
It drew me into framing.
Okay.
Because when I started with my thought process, I'm going to be building houses. I want to learn every aspect of building houses and then just go out on my own. And this is going to be my thing. The framing drew me in to the passion of framing.
Yeah.
To where I decided, I'm not so sure I want to go build houses. Kind of liking this framing thing.
Right.
And how do I make money doing this?
So you're setting this up. You're like a pro. How did you make money? How did you ultimately turn into what you are today?
So at that time in the era of framing in Southern California, a dirty little word was starting, a little practice called piecework. And one by one, a lot of these companies were taking on piece workers to do what was being done hourly.
Yeah.
So our bosses, in all their great wisdom, looked at all of us, the team, said, "You guys are making too much money. You don't appreciate it. So we're going to show you. You're going to piecework." Okay. So I grabbed one of the best guys, maybe two of the best guys. I can't quite clearly recall, but I grabbed one or two of the guys that I knew were the best. I said, "Hey, you're with me, and we're going to go piecework." So my first check was 3 or 4 times what I was getting paid.
Wow.
So within a month, I was making a significant amount of money. And within a month, our bosses had a meeting with us. "Hey guys, this was all a grand experiment.
Just kidding.
We need to put that back in the box." And some of the guys who were a little less ambitious said, "Oh, okay, boss, I'm back on the clock." I looked at him and said, "It's either piecework or see ya." And it was see ya.
So you parted ways at that point.
Parted ways from that group.
How old are you? How old are you when that happens?
I think it was 20.
20.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So that is a pretty young age to kind of draw that line in the sand as an individual, I would say. I mean, that's pretty brave to do at 20 years old.
Motivated by money.
Sure.
There was plenty of work.
But a lot of people are motivated by money, but they're still like, I know I could still make money over here. There's comfort in having the job. Whereas you said, no, hold on a second. I've got something here.
And that comes from two things. So it comes from, I have no overhead.
Mm-hmm.
I have no wife, no kids.
Sure.
And nothing that says, "Hey, don't take the risk." And it comes from within. So from within, I was motivated to take the risk and make the money.
Were you scared at all at that point? 20 years old saying, I could figure this out separate from you?
No.
No?
I was more disappointed because I liked the group.
Right.
It's kind of like you're losing your friends.
Sure. Yeah.
So, well, I'm going to be seeing you guys. I don't know when, but I'll be seeing you.
I'll see. Well, all right. So we'll circle back to that sentiment a little bit later. So 20 years old, you kind of, the light bulb goes off. You see the money that you can, make. Where did you go from there?
So then I grabbed a couple of guys. One came with me from the company, and then I grabbed a couple of my buddies, which is the kind of the trying to convince your friends that you drink beer with.
Yeah.
"Hey, bro, get up early in the morning, come with me to work. It's not all bad. You'll make some money." And I grabbed a couple of those guys and went out and went to the jobs. You just go to a job and you pull up and say, "Hey, you got work?" And they would say yes or no.
Yeah.
You drive around the valley and there was work everywhere.
You're just a door-to-door salesman at that point.
It literally.
Yeah.
You just walk up. "Who's the foreman? What's available? Do you need a..." And then we were a little bit more open to what we were doing. We were doing whatever they said.
Right.
We got framing.
Getting the work.
You can do framing. You got joisting. We can do joisting.
So you land that. What was it like? Do you remember the first time that you went out and did that, knocked on the door proverbially and said, "All right, you got work?" And they said yes. Do you remember that day?
Not exactly, but I don't think it was yes.
Yeah. What was it? Just
Probably get the F out of
here. Yeah. So how long did you do that in terms of the piecework and
I did that off and on through my 20s.
yeah.
And had partnerships through my 20s. And the partnerships would stem from, I'd be doing specific tasks on we'll call them a client. And the client would like my work so much, they would say, "Hey, why don't you become a partner?"
Okay.
And that's kind of how I got into doing the overall framing thing, because they had the license. I didn't have a license.
Right. So, kind of word of mouth, proving yourself out there for, it sounds like the better part of a decade.
Pretty much, yeah. For about 10 years, I was doing what they call snap plate and detail. So I had a layout crew, and I was doing stairs, and I was doing plumb and line.
Okay.
And setting beams. And back then they called that the gravy. So You'd roll up on a job site and it's like, oh, hey, the gravy train's here.
Nice. What happened after that? Because full disclosure for everybody listening to this, watching this, you and I don't know each other very well, right? I mean, we've been in this industry for a long time. I've been in Northern California. You've been down here in Southern California. I'm fascinated by the journey to where you are. You know, we have some colleagues that we were just talking to. They absolutely love you and adore you, and I trust them to the very end of the day. And it's always interesting to hear people's journeys and how they got where they are. So that's why I'm going through some of this, because I don't know every detail of your career here. I kind of know the end where you are now. So just filling in those blanks there. So you run through. You got the gravy train. What happens after that?
So the gravy train was good, but it's distracting.
Okay.
Because I was making in my early 20s, 150 to 175,000 bucks a year. Just doing a 2-3 man deal.
Yeah.
Working 70, 80 hours a week. The pull would be from my elders who would try and get me to partner up, saying, you know, you need to go to college. And the college being, you need to come work for me, get the big picture,
Right.
and make some money and then move forward. So that's kind of what I did off and on throughout my 20s, was trying to find a good partner that could teach me, and taking kind of a bachelor's degree towards a master's, but in segments.
Sure.
So I would go and partner with somebody for a minute and then go back out in peace, and then repeat, rinse and repeat.
And just kind of learning as you went, getting better as you go.
Because you're learning to manage more people.
Yeah.
Because when you're running a piece crew, you only got like 3 or 4 guys or maybe 5 guys. So how do you manage the whole big picture? And that's what I started stepping my way up on. You know, managing a 20 unit, a 30 unit, a 50 unit.
What's the biggest difference between that? So you, like you said, 3 or 4 people versus what we'll call a unit, 20 people. What's the biggest difference in terms of leading either one of those crews that people need to be aware of?
You need to really figure out what your structure is going to be on a project and who's doing what, and be a taskmaster. And make sure that if you're hands-on managing a project, it's delegating the duties and making sure that each of the individuals are doing that.
And like you said, holding everyone accountable, make sure that they are staying on task.
Yeah, and going around and making sure they're doing that.
Yeah.
That took a while to learn. That wasn't easy. And one of my best teachers was a gentleman who made me his partner for a couple of years, who let me run the first project, and it didn't go that great. And then rather than lecture me, he just showed up with his nail bags. And he worked with me hands-on for the 3 months it took us to get through the job.
So he just went to work.
He went to work and showed me what it meant to lead a team.
So how'd that change you? I imagine that have to change you. I mean, you're talking about it today.
Yeah. It opened my eyes to how to better manage people.
Yeah. It's amazing how that happens. I didn't know how to read plans when I was really, really young into this industry. And one of the veterans that I worked with, he's retired now, could see it. We were at a meeting together and he was looking at me, and after the meeting was up, it's like, do you know what you're looking at? I'm like, I have no idea. Thankfully I was honest and I said, I have no idea what I'm looking at.
That's the best way to get taught.
Yeah. And he didn't have to, but he did. He sat down with me and showed me the basics, to which to this day, I still kind of fall back on. It's amazing how they can have that impact. And him showing, not just saying, you got to go learn to do this or be better, but let me open this up and show you and do it side by side. Pretty powerful stuff. I mean, that's kind of what leaders are made out of, right? And you got that sent to you, and obviously you're paying that forward with your business to this day. So let's get to the meat of it. When you and I were talking about a week or two ago, we started talking about what makes your company unique and what made it unique. And it took some time for Southern California in particular to catch on to what you were seeing and the vision that you have for panelization. So I guess we'll work backwards. What makes or made your company unique at the time, in your opinion?
At which point?
Well, I guess just in general, you're well known, right? VLF. So what is it that when people think of you and your brand, what is it that stands out in your opinion?
What stands out is customer service.
Okay.
You know that we're always going to take care of you. And we are always going to stick to whatever we said. So you got to follow through.
Right.
You got to do what you say you're going to do. So if we say we're going to do X, Y, Z in this many months, we strive to do X, Y, Z in that many months. Are we perfect? No, but we get pretty close to as good as we can be every time.
Well, and that it gets you that repeat business, I would assume, right?
Correct.
People go, well, I can rely on him and I can rely on that company. We're going to do that again. I mean,
It's self-promotion.
yeah.
It's easy to sit down and negotiate with people that know that, hey, if I hire you, I know that you're going to finish the job. You're going to get it done. And if I'm asking for, which they always have the fantasy game, hey, can you do this in 2 months? No, nobody can do it in 2 months. Well, so-and-so said they would. Well, I can do it in 3.
So that's pretty important though, right? I mean, you're not robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to speak. You're going to be pretty upfront and honest. I can't do this in 2 months in that scenario. I can do it in 3. And here's how.
You can't, you can sell something 1 time or 2 times that way.
Yeah.
And how do you sell it the 1 time? You tell them that and they believe you, and then you don't do it, and then they get angry. How do you sell it the second time? You sell it the second time after they've forgotten, and then you cut your price. So then in between, they kind of don't remember it, and you've cut your price. They go, okay, I believe you again. But you can't do it on a repetitive basis.
Yeah. It's not sustainable.
No. The only way for it to be sustainable is to be the cheapest guy in town.
Yeah.
So then it's like, there's the hero, blah, 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 the price. Okay.
Well, there's no value there necessarily, right?
That is a business owner.
Sure.
It's not the way to make money.
So let's talk about wall panelization. Let's talk about panelization in general. So we were talking about this and it was fascinating. You were kind of at the forefront of this, what I would say revolution in construction.
We were definitely the leading edge in this region. Panelization has been around for a long time. It just hasn't been suited to our market and what we do. We do a very complex, major multifamily.
Yeah.
For every success at that time, there was a dozen failures. So the panelization industry was not believed or embraced.
So why did you believe in it?
Because I had decided to go into what I call Brian's Folly, which is opening a truss plant.
Okay.
And now I have millions of dollars in this truss plant, and I'm looking at ways to utilize the land I have and the equipment I have. And going to trade shows, you get to see a lot of cool pieces of equipment that they may work or maybe not work. I happened to see a saw at one of the trade shows, and I said, that saw, if we can get software to talk to that saw, we got something. We can do panels. And I was interested in panels and following it for decades on the basis of understanding that eventually it's going to figure itself out and it's going to make a difference. So by seeing the saw, I saw the opportunity to perhaps get the ball rolling.
So just to put that on the timeline, how old are you when you saw that saw? Like around what age?
You're 44.
Okay.
Was there 2004? So now you know when I was born, 1960.
I'm not doing math. I'm a sales guy, so I can do 5s and 0s. You throw a 4 in there, I'm out. I can't do it. So your secret's safe with me. Okay. So around 2004, you really, you're like, okay, I see where this can go. I've got this entity over here that I've already invested in. I want to maximize my investment. I think that saw with the right software, we're cooking with fire. But it didn't just take off right away.
No, we partnered with a software company that said they could do it and gave them a year. They didn't do it. We partnered with another one. Within 6 months, we realized they weren't going to do it. And then we partnered with MyTech. And the partnership was based on, will you guys really put out the effort and put up, the horsepower to get this done? Because this is not something we're going to get done in 6 months, a year, or 2 years. This is going to be years of us working together to get this software worked out.
Yeah.
And thank you, Warren. Mr. Buffett's money funded a great software package.
So we're a couple years into this. You try a couple things. It's not fitting right. You finally find a partner there. What happens next? I mean, it felt like there was still some time before this really started to take root. Or am I wrong in that?
No, we spent years doing it, baby steps.
Okay.
So you're building houses.
Yeah.
Any software package will work on the houses. So we were fabricating houses, getting used to panelizing and how the processes work. Because we had a pretty big housing division before the crash. We were doing about 300 starts a month. And the builders liked the panelization at the time for the houses. So we were using that process to keep things rolling. And then the software kind of came to a place where we felt it would work good enough around the end of 2008.
Okay.
And we took a 80 unit project and made it panels, found out where we were not doing so good and found out where we were strong, and then went full in and turned our entire production the following year into full panels.
So what did that do to the business for you?
Fortunately for us, it helped us survive because the economy was coming apart pretty strong, and it helped us cut labor at a time when we needed to cut labor and keep us afloat.
You're talking 2008. So we're right at the beginning or right in the middle of
2009.
Okay. So all the worst of it.
2008, housing had already, like, we used to have these big 3 dry erase boards in this conference room with the tracks and other 40 tracks of homes. And you would have the starts per month.
Right.
And you could go down each line item for each month and, 06, and it's 300 starts. And somewhere around, I want to say it was August of 06 or it was August of 07, all of a sudden it went to 100. And then a month later it went to 80. So
alarm bells.
Yeah, it hit pretty hard. The multifamily was what was sustaining us, and going to the prefabrication is what helped us carry through there.
So having that vision ahead of time, like you said, and investing and doing the research and finding the right partners to partner with at that time and setting yourself up, like you said, it allowed for you to sustain and be able to use that panelization and run kind of lean and mean through those lean years. Coming out of the, that Great Recession, when did it really start to, I know multifamily was holding you afloat, but coming out of that, was it just like, okay, this is how we're doing it from now on and we can scale up, or what was that like coming out of that recession?
So it was during that period of time, it was a lot of training the customers and educating them on the process because it still wasn't embraced, and getting all the trade partners. So it was years of, as we were coming out of that, getting the different trade partners, the plumbers, the electricians, all the follow-on trades, to realize that this was something not to fight. It was something to embrace. You were going to do better if you would work with us.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the trades would say, look, come into the meeting. We're going to put the bay right where you want it. We're going to do all this stuff. I don't have time for that. And once they started figuring it out, all of a sudden it started becoming a closed loop. The real momentum took, I got to say, probably like 7 years. There's a little phrase we were kicking around. It took us, it took me 40 years to be an overnight success. I think it took our panelizing a decade to be an overnight success.
So how do you not get discouraged during that? Or did you? I mean, I would imagine after 10 years or close to it, you're like, this just isn't, it's a great idea. It's just not the right time, or what kept you going?
I didn't feel like the panelizing wasn't like the right time. What you're having these mental arguments with yourself about is when you have all these people that work for you that are kind of your family, and you see the economy being bad, and you're watching your bank account kind of going, and should I just pack this in and just keep my pile of cash and wait till the economy comes back, or just keep trudging along and things are going to be fine? So those are the kind of little conversations you have in your head. I never felt like I need to stop, but it didn't mean I didn't think about it.
That's incredible, though. I mean, you very well could have gone into self-preservation mode, like you said, and said, okay, I made good money. This isn't going to work. I don't need to do this anymore. I'm good. But that thought of, I have all these people that work for me, that work with me, and what happens to them if I were to do that? I mean, that's pretty incredible to not put yourself as the lead horse in that regard. I mean, that again, going back to having your boss at the time work right next to you, but I think that's you putting yourself right next to the employees at that point and saying, no, we're in this together. You know, we're gonna see this through, and hopefully we see it all the way through, and it's better as we come out of this, which it certainly was.
Yeah, it turned into a great plan and a great program, because you're all about your people.
Yeah.
I'm just one person. I can't do it all myself. So if you don't build a good team, you can't build a good operation. So leaving that team behind was not like a serious option.
Given all that, and given where you started and how you started, and you know, your resolve to keep going through different areas there, is there something that stands out in your career right now that is like you're most proud of, that was like a tent pole of like, if that didn't happen, man, things would have been different? Or is there anything like that? What's the thing that stands out?
I think there'd be two things. One was my decision to differentiate myself from all the other framers.
Yeah.
When I was first starting, I was doing 50, 60, 70, 80 unit, occasional 100 unit stuff. And it seemed like everybody was doing that. And I'd have a customer and I'm doing 2 jobs, and then I don't get the next 3. And the next 3 were 3 different guys.
Yeah.
And I looked at who was doing the big work, and it was a handful of guys doing the big jobs. And I thought about it and I said, that's where I need to be. I need to be up there doing the big jobs, because then there's a half a dozen of us, or there's 8 or 9. There's not 50, 60, 70 guys all fighting for the same work.
Yeah.
So that was a pivotal point. And then I think the next pivot was doing the panels, because the panels really differentiated us from everybody else. Because when you're a stick framer, you're one of the 7 or 8 or 9 guys. Well, my competitors have all these relationships, and I'm the new guy. And you'd walk in, and the customer says, "Well, why am I going to give you the job, Brian? I have a relationship with Randy Davis, or back then Lee Bolin, or XYZ. Well, because I'm a great guy and I'm going to do a great job. Well, they're great guys and they do a great job." So hearing that kind of on a repetitive basis, my only alternative was to be cheaper.
Right.
Well, that doesn't make you rich, and it's not going to sustain your business, and it's going to make it very hard to grow. So the pivot with the panelization is, we're different from everybody else. We're providing a completely different service. So that put us in the position of, we like our framer that we've been using, but you're available and we really like what you're doing. And he can't, and the way the industry is not in a position to provide the product.
When you're different, that unique, who are you bidding against at that point too, right? I mean, you're so different. You're in, your first cousins, everyone's family, whatever. But when you're doing it so differently than somebody else, it makes you stand out to where people go, okay, I'm interested, I'm intrigued. What do you got? And it feels like the value add is a little bit different, or the value prop is a little bit different than everybody else. Is that
there is a value add, but somehow we still can't get that value.
Yeah.
They still say, okay, you got to do it for stick framer price. And we're fine with that. Yeah, that's what we do. But it's funny because my partner and the accounting people in my office say, why can't you just charge more? Because the industry isn't ready to pay more. They're still willing to use Randy or XYZ framer versus me if I stand my ground and don't match the price.
Well, so that in mind, I mean, you've experienced quite a bit in your career. Anybody looking to jump out, if they're listening to this, they're watching this right now, and they're hearing everything that you're talking about, Brian, what advice would you give to anybody saying, all right, I'm going to go out and do something, whether it's a framing company or just something else in this industry? It doesn't even have to be in this industry. What's the one piece of advice that if you're talking to somebody they can't live without? What do they have to do or not do in order to be a success in your mind?
I think the easiest path towards success, if you're really determined to do anything in any industry, is to go work for somebody who's successful.
Go see it, go live it right
Yeah.
next to them. I love that. All right. Well, this is probably the most important question of the entire podcast. We've learned a lot here today, talking to Brian Larrabure, but your mom and dad were in the movie industry. I sent this over to you, so I'm hoping you got a chance to take a look at this, but Hollywood calls you tomorrow and says, we're making a life about your movie, or we're making a movie about your life. Let me flip that over. Who's the actor that's playing you in the movie, and what's the title of that movie?
Well, I'd say it would be Mike Rowe.
Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs.
Yeah.
There you go. I love that. That's a great answer. I wish I had thought of that for me when somebody asked me that. I think it is a fantastic service for this country in terms of what he.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, what movie out there, if you had to watch one movie that you said, that movie's already made, but that's my life. Is there one out there?
No, I haven't seen. You sent me the question. I thought about it, and I was like,
You're too busy building all the houses and everything anyway.
Too busy racing and goofing off and other stuff.
So talk to me about that. We were talking a little bit in the green room, because we do have a green room here. You're big into racing, right? Cars, motorcycles?
It's my hobby. I enjoy motorcycle racing and car racing.
Is there anything else that you're doing outside of work that you're just like, heck yeah, if I'm done working today, I'm going to go do this?
That would be hanging out with you guys and what was the catchphrase for that product?
Simpson Strong Water?
Yes.
Having a little Simpson Strong Water.
Yes.
We're experts at that. We can certainly do that. So talk to me about how'd you get into racing?
My dad. So my dad used to race motorcycles in South America.
Wow.
And he's part Peruvian. And that was his passion. And he used to drag me out to the racetracks when I was a little kid. And I think it was like 9 years old, and I was a corner worker waving a flag. And they tried to put me in some no impact. So I think it could never happen today. In some no impact zone, and it would become an impact zone, and they would move me.
That was a bad idea. Let's put them over the
out. Put them in some area where you can get sunburnt and nothing's going to happen all day long. And I kind of got the bug on the bikes and bike racing. Yeah, but I never had the time for it. I had bikes.
Yeah.
I always wanted to race, but I never had the time. Work was first, and then it was family. And I have a collection of real factory race bikes that I built up over the years.
Wow.
And I wanted to race them. And so I think I was in my mid 40s, and I told my wife, I said, honey, I'm having a midlife crisis. I can either get a full head of hair and a nice Ferrari convertible and a hot young girlfriend, or go motorcycle racing. She goes, I think that's a better choice.
That's the illusion of choice right there. I love it. Well done.
So she let me go run around the country, go racing. I was trained by professionals, world champion and some AMA champions have taught me over the years to keep me safe. And then my business partner, I'm fortunate to have as a business partner, invited me to go car racing. And I really liked the car racing thing. I said, he does endurance racing. So I said, this is a lot of fun. I really like this. I don't like the car you have. It's a piece of junk. And I don't like the guy you're doing it with because he's kind of a jerk. I said, there's only room for 2 jerks in the room. That's you and me. We can't have 3. So let's go get a car and go racing. And we've been doing that for 10 years.
I like that your career starts with you as a child looking at the curb appeal of the houses saying, I like that. I don't like this. And your hobby, you go, I like this, but I don't like your car. There's something there on the bookends there of taking a look at this and going, I like it, but we could do better.
Yeah.
And it's almost kind of your career in many ways. I like this, but we can do better. That's fantastic. So last question before we part ways here today. Where is the best place to race or your favorite place?
Top 5. Road America would be in the top 5. That's in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin.
Okay.
Sebring for the cars. That's at Sebring, Florida. Barber for either cars or motorcycles in Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama.
Okay.
Laguna Seca Monterey, California.
Close to my home. Yeah.
Both bikes and cars. Thunder Hill is a favorite. We're doing Thunder Hill next weekend. It's 1,000 miles of Thunder Hill. 5-mile course. It's going to be 8-hour days.
Wow.
And the first car to cross and do a full 1,000 miles is going to checker the race.
That's awesome.
It was going to be our national championship run because we were in position, but I got hit at the regional finale at over 100 miles an hour, and our cute little Porsche with me in it was sent flying into the woods, and it doesn't exist anymore.
Wow.
So we're out of the national convention, and we're in a fresh car for the race weekend.
Well, I wish you nothing but luck. I appreciate you being here on
the luck we can get.
Strong Conversations, and thank you all for joining us here. Stay tuned for more episodes of Strong Conversations coming up soon. See you then.